Oh, Captain, my Captain. This is Club Fantasy's DFS Showdown breakdown videos for Conference Championship weekend. I am Joshua Hudson, your captain, and this is my compass, Austin Amandolia. Austin, we're breaking down the Detroit Lions versus the San Francisco 49ers. Before we get into all of these picks, tell everybody how they can play Conference Championship weekend showdowns against us here at Club Fantasy.
That is right. You can join our DraftKings and our FanDuel leagues using the links in the show description. Those L words, they really got tied up there. We'll be having games all weekend for you, all weekend meeting Sunday, where we have both conference championship games. There will be showdown slates for each contest on the DraftKings league. There's a contest also on FanDuel where you can play both games. It's one slate, it's just 2 in 1, which is also fun. It's a little different twist, but you can play with us on both websites.
Love it. All right. If you have caught any of these DFS Showdown videos over the last couple of weeks, you will know that we have some fun categories for you to break down all of these picks. Our first one is Captain Chalk, because every DFS slate has a chalk play, and that is exactly what this is. And Austin, kind of hard to argue with the most expensive guy on this slate.
Yeah, he's been the chalk play basically all season long, and that is none other than Christian McCaffrey. Here's the thing that's a little interesting about CMC this week. He may be a little less chalky than typical just because people may galaxy brain themselves into buying into the Lions' run defense. It is a really tough run defense, and so people may buy into that too much, and so they will avoid him in the captain spot. I say that. I also do believe that the Lions are a tough run defense, and that is something that Christian McCaffrey is going to face. So it's very possible that he's not the highest scoring player on the slate, and therefore you could consider not having him in your captain spot. Also, he's really expensive. It's really hard to fit him in this week, especially because there's not great punt options. So there's a case to be made to not play Christian McCaffrey this week. However, he always has a chance to drop a 50 burger, and if he does, you're going to miss out. So if you're playing multiple entries, make sure you spread that exposure around. You get some of CMC in your captain spot, and you get different in some other places.
And you speaking of different, because every captain needs a mutineer. And that's what this category is. These are the contrarian captain choices that offer some variety and some upside in your larger tournaments. I'm all about getting Christian McCaffrey in your lineup, but maybe not paying that extra $3 or $4 grand to put him as your captain. So tell me about these guys so I can still fit Christian McCaffrey in my lineup.
Yeah, there you go. So I think Brandon Aiyuk is a great option for that because, believe it or not, he's cheaper than Deebo Samuel, which makes sense, sort of, except for the fact that Deebo Samuel might not play this week. But people are down on Brandon Aiyuk. I was surprised to see that last week he was in only 5% of captain spots in contest I played in, and he was only 31% rostered overall. That is wild given what Brandon Aiyuk has done throughout the season, and I think people are going to continue to be down on him. Now, he might get a little bump because the Lions have a really bad secondary. It's been well documented, but I still really like him in this spot. I think he has a good chance to pop off in this matchup. And if Deebo Samuel doesn't play in particular, Brandon Aiyuk should get plenty of volume. On the other side of the ball, I also love Amon-Ra St. Brown as a contrarian captain choice. And the main reason is he could catch the most passes of anyone in this game. Jared Goff loves to pepper his number one receiver. And so Amon-Ra St. Brown could easily finish with 10 to 12 catches. And if he scores a touchdown or two to go along with that, that could be plenty enough to make him the highest scoring player on the slate. So love St. Brown, love Brandon Aiyuk. I don't think you can go wrong with either guy.
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown's seen 164 targets this year. And that's not including the first couple of rounds of the playoffs, where he's also seen a lot of targets. I do love some Aiyuk this week. I think even if Deebo is able to play, I'm not 100% sold that he's going to be 100%. Yeah. And I think that's going to open up some room for a couple other picks a little bit later. But this next category we'll get to is your first mate, because every captain needs the reliable crew. These are going to be the standouts that maximize your lineup. We just mentioned Brandon Aiyuk. Who's throwing the football, Austin?
Yeah, it would be Brock Purdy, who, he had a rough week last week, but as long as there's no rain, we should all be in the clear. It's like Brock Purdy can't play in the rain. That's what I learned, and I think that's a good takeaway from last week. So we should be good this week. I don't think rain's in the forecast. Plus, San Francisco has a 29-point implied team total. They continue to consistently have to be predicted to get 30 points every week by the sports books, and Brock Purdy is a decent reason why he could easily throw for 3 touchdowns. He easily get 300 passing yards, especially given the secondary. And it's going to make him a great person to have in your lineup. He might not be able to be the best captain option, because if, like, let's say Brandon Aiyuk scores 2 touchdowns, he's going to get there way more easily than Brock Purdy is. But I do think having Brock Purdy in your lineup is a great, great option.
Yeah, and you mentioned that terrible Lions secondary. Woof. Not great, Bob. Not great.
It's bad.
All right. Tell me a little bit about Jahmyr Gibbs, the RB1 on these Detroit Lions.
I know. Here we are. Everybody mourned the loss of David Montgomery, my boy. Jahmyr Gibbs, though, he's basically truly taken over this backfield. He can even pass block now. And that was the biggest ding about him early in the season, is it was like, yeah, David Montgomery is playing because he can freaking pass block. Well, now Jahmyr Gibbs has learned a lesson or two, so he's on the field more. San Francisco is actually a better matchup, too, compared to Green Bay. And Jahmyr Gibbs did just fine last week. He had 18 DraftKings points, and he was under 30% rostered, which is freaking wild that he had that low rostership and contest. So, he might get more played this week because he did well, but I think people still think this is a good run defense in San Francisco. And they're not wrong, but they're not as good as we might think they are. And Jahmyr Gibbs, the way he gets rushing yards and he gets opportunities is often outside of the tackles and outside of the hash marks. And so that is where you can attack the San Francisco run defense. It's harder when you're running straight into Teron Armstead, but if you're getting on the outside, things are looking a little better. Eric Armstead. I had the last name.
No, I do love Gibbs. I mean, anytime you get outside the edges, especially when they're running upfield to try to pass rush, that's where quicker running backs can take advantage of that. All right, next category is going to be your deck scrubbers, and these are the cheaper punt play options that can make a lineup based on one play, limited opportunity. We already talked a little bit about the potential of Deebo Samuel missing this game. Who does that open up some opportunity for, Austin?
Yeah, so Jauan Jennings, I had him last week, even before Deebo Samuel went out, and it worked out just fine. Especially if Deebo can't play. Jennings was already filling in for the Deebo role. The commentators on the broadcast noted the second they came out, first snap of the second half, they had Jauan Jennings in the backfield next to Brock Purdy, which is typically a way we see Deebo Samuel being used. So you can see Jauan Jennings getting more touches, more opportunities in the pass and the run game if Deebo cannot play. He's also pretty cheap. He's not as cheap as he was last week, which is a bummer because it'd be nice to save some extra cash in our lineup.
Look, with every good performance, the price just goes up, right? Speaking of guys that are a little bit more expensive, David Montgomery, he's fallen quite a bit. He's about $400 more than Jauan Jennings, but he's still getting those early down touches and, of course, potentially those red zone opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. He's just so cheap this week. And that's the thing that gets me. He still had 10 touches last week, but they're treating him like he's just been phased out of the offense. He hasn't been. Yeah, they ran Jahmyr Gibbs more last week, but honestly, that touchdown run that they had from the 1 yard line, I think that was probably designed for David Montgomery, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So if he gets in the end zone last week, his price probably doesn't dip the way it does on DraftKings. So I guess thank you for that. But
take advantage of it.
Take advantage of it. Exactly. There's a good chance he makes it into the end zone. He could score 15 DraftKings points, and at his price, that is gold.
All right. And before we get to our last category, this is your friendly reminder to hit the links in the video description, and you can come and play these DFS showdowns against us here at Club Fantasy on both DraftKings and FanDuel. All right, Austin, our last category, because every hero needs a villain. This is the Kraken. These are the lineup traps that sink the ship. And there was a strange transaction that happened a little bit earlier this week, and people are going to see Zach Ertz as an available option for Conference Championship weekend. Just no, right? Just no.
Yeah, no, we're not doing it. He just joined the team to provide them security and depth because Brock Wright got hurt during their game last week. He's on the IR. He's out for the rest of the season. James Mitchell also out. They needed some other guys. They have Zane Zylstra still. I can't remember the last time he touched the ball. But Zach Ertz is there to provide some depth. Also gives them a chance at a ring. Like, let's be honest.
This is true.
And I think that
Sam
that's
Laporte is still banged up too. So there's that.
Yes, that's also true. So tight end room is looking beat up. I would not expect them to have a play ready for Zach Ertz this week. Super Bowl weekend, if they make it that far, that's a different story.
I would definitely agree with that. And during our David Montgomery chat, we brought up somebody who happened to have stolen a touchdown.
Yeah, and stolen is the accurate word here because apparently Craig Reynolds wasn't supposed to be on the field for this play where he scored a touchdown. I literally just before recording this caught an article where that was talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown discussing on his podcast with the 33rd team that they had the wrong personnel on the field for this play, and that as Amon-Ra St. Brown was going in motion on this play during the pre-snap, he looked over and he's like, what the heck is Craig Reynolds doing here? He's not supposed to be there. And he just thought originally like, oh, this is just some play we do for Craig Reynolds. And then he realized, nope, that's the wrong dude. So I don't know. This was random. The only thing he did between week 9 and the divisional round was fumble. Literally, you go look at his stat line, there is one fumble and nothing else from week 9 through the wild card. It's not going to happen.
The fact that the Bucks couldn't stop Craig Reynolds on a play that wasn't designed for Craig Reynolds feels like a very strong indictment against that defense. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah,
All right, and this has been our DFS showdown breakdown of the Lions versus the 49ers on Conference Championship weekend. You can follow everything we do at Club Fantasy across the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right here on YouTube at Club Fantasy FFL, the URL, clubfantasyffl.com. I am Joshua Hudson at the One Hudsonian. That is Austin Amandolia at Austin_FFL. Be sure to check out our other Conference Championship DFS showdown breakdown of the Chiefs versus the Ravens. Good luck to all. We'll see you Super Bowl weekend.